crimes against the Sin Empire. Swear you're fealty, and I will empower you to be wardens of Simulation 31.
Oh my stars, it's the president!
Hi, Howard. What the fuck?
The place you're in isn't real. You have to break free.
Jason, I've gathered all your friends here together today because we need to talk to you. It's
is this that talk again?
Yeah, we need to have an intervention because I feel like we're all very disappointed that you're letting like your wife and your job.
Just let me finish this glass at least.
Oh no, not about booze. Not about booze.
Okay, fuck then shit. Go on, man.
I'm worried that you are spending far too much time with this job and career and significant other bullshit that you didn't get a chance to play Saints Row 4.
Yeah, it's true.
This is when you really have to reevaluate your shit, man. You got get your priorities in order. Saints Row 4 came out.
I really let things get out of control, and I just want help.
And yeah, this would normally be the point where I would bring Nick in to read his note where he talks about how much he loves you and how much you're hurting him. But he said he was just going to call you gay and then laugh at you a lot. So
if Nick said, "I love you and you're hurting me a lot," I'd be like, really? I have not yet begun to deal out the pain, young Nicholas.
Well, welcome everybody to Rage Select. We're talking today about Saints Row 4, which was, it's weird how these things creep up on you. How, you start 2013, you're just like, oh man, this is going to be a great year. And all these different games coming out. You get The Last of Us, BioShock Infinite, Grand Theft Auto 5 and stuff. And it was like a week before Saints Row came out, I realized I was really excited for Saints Row 4. Like, more so than I thought I was in the lead up to it, where I was just like, yeah, new Saints Row game. And then it came out, and I was just like, oh, I can't wait. I consider going to a midnight launch, which I don't really ever do.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I don't know that I've ever done a midnight launch for a video game.
Mm-hmm. The last one that I did was, what was the Rockstar game? L.A. Noire. Was the last one that was at midnight launch.
Yeah, I've been playing game. I can't remember a time when I didn't play video games, literally.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are times, but in my memory, I can't remember when. I've never gone to a midnight launch. Although, Assassin's Creed 4, I might have to do that.
Oh, we will see. But back to Saints Row. This is actually a game that I wasn't for a while there wasn't entirely certain was going to happen. When THQ went out of business and Volition was up in the air and wasn't sure what was going to happen. But Deep Silver, the guys who made Dead Island and a few other games, I'm not super impressed with their track record. Last time I looked them up, it was like, oh, you guys made X3 and Warhammer Mark of Chaos and all right, I don't know.
The way I see it, your video game track record is a lot like girls you hooked up with.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, well, that one, yeah, Dead Island Riptide, it was 2 a.m. and had a lot of Jaeger,
well,
that kind of thing. So they can't all be winners is what I'm saying.
That's a really apt metaphor because Saints Row 4 is like this dirty, skanky, horrible woman who just is foul and disgusting, and I have never had as much fun as when I've been dating her. My friends are like, man, you got to get away from that shit. And I'm just like, no, dude, you don't even understand. Because
Saints Row 4, it will give you a disease.
That's right. It'll give you a disease and you'll be like, it was worth it. I think it was worth it.
They have got to contact me for marketing their next game. Saints Row, a freak in the sheets.
But for those, for those following the deep and intricate plot, it's actually interesting because this game actually has a pretty decent plot. In Saints Row 1, you had a GTA knockoff. Saints Row 2, it's like the Saints were becoming this bigger thing. In Saints Row 3, they were all these the 3rd Street Saints, the gang that you are the head of. In Saints Row 3, they were like international superstars, and so they were kind of able to do a lot of shit with impunity. Saints Row 4, you start out as president of the goddamn United States. After what could possibly be one of the best intro sequences I've seen in a video game in quite a while.
Yeah, that was very much a, oh, really, Uncharted? Check this shit out.
Like it's and you know that opening actually says a lot about what Saints Row 4 is. It is cheesy as fuck. It is pop culture reference as hell. It's kind of, I mean, on the consoles at least, it's kind of ugly and kind of a throwback. Like, if this is just a military third-person shooter, the first thing I would say in the review for it would be like, this game is ugly. Like, this should, like, PS2 ugly. Because it's pretty ugly, but you know what?
Freak in the sheets.
All that can be forgiven because the game is just so fun. So fun. So, for those of you keeping up, like I said, with the plot, after you become president of the United States, aliens come in. This is literally the first 5 minutes of the game, so I'm not spoiling anything here. Aliens come in, and they kidnap everybody, and your character that you've created gets dumped into essentially this simulation of Steelport where you've got super fucking powers, and you're running around destabilizing the Matrix and shit. I mean, I don't know. Saints Row 4 makes... the Matrix Revolutions look like some kind of really super stuffy British highbrow drama in comparison. I'm like, yeah, you're fighting 20 Agent Smiths, but are you running down the street at Mach 3 with cars and shit behind you, just destroying everything in your path? No, obviously not is the answer.
It's almost like that revelation I had the first time I saw Grand Theft Auto 3. Mm-hmm. I was watching friends play it, and I was like, "See, you can just run around and do whatever, like rob people and jack cars and shoot shit." And it's like that, but it's like, yeah, it's all of that. Only now you're basically a god.
Yep, and from there, I mean, I really don't want to talk too much about the plot of this game because it actually goes into some very strange places that by the time we got a little bit into the game, and suddenly it became clear to me like that what this game was actually kind of parodying in certain ways, and I don't know, like I didn't even expect it to go there. It's almost like, it's almost like when you watch, like you see a movie or a TV show that's like a really just wrote by the numbers parody show, right? Like the Freeburg and Seltzer movies, right? Like, pick one, Vampires Suck or Disaster Movie or whatever.
Whatever. I've never seen any of them.
And some of those, and sometimes when you're doing parody like that, it's like some parody is coming from a standpoint of people they're constantly elbowing you, going, look how clever we are. Where Saints Row 4, it seems like they actually have like they kind of have just a love of fun and ridiculousness, and that they're embracing the entire thing in a way that doesn't come off as cheesy. It's not so much like, ooh, look what we did. Isn't this so clever? As I don't know. There's a care involved with the parody, because they parody a few different games in here. And there's a care involved in the creation of this game that makes it feel not like just some kind of cheap cash grab. Like, it feels like a labor of love from the guys or the fine ladies and gentlemen over at Volition.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that I don't know, like, what the awareness of the state of THQ. Like, did they think this might be our very last Saints Row game? What I wonder what the creators' mentality was going into and throughout the development of this game, because it really seems to me like they're like, eat, drink, and be merry and batshit crazy because tomorrow we die.
Well, actually, it's interesting. The development history of this is pretty fascinating, because it looks like it actually. I could be kind of off on this, but from what I can see, I was seeing stories that Saints Row 4 was actually originally going to be a DLC package for Saints Row 3 that they then spun into this entire game based on the concept of going into a virtual version of Steelport. And as much as we've been talking about how awesome this game is, if you've played, like I played Saints Row 2, I played Saints Row 3, I played all the way to the end in both those games, played Saints Row 4 all the way to the end. The one thing that I will say is that this is not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, most of the assets in this game, especially Steelport, seems like it's lifted directly out of Saints Row 3 with a little bit of a tune-up, a little bit of a paint job, a few things here and there. But the actual open world that the game takes place in is extremely similar to Saints Row 3. So if you're coming in here expecting like a whole brand new city to mess around in. It's not that. It's not that there's a new city. It's that the way that you get around that city is that you're now using these superpowers instead of driving cars and flying planes and stuff like that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. This is kind of a larger scale argument, but developers don't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars reinventing the wheel for every iteration. And I'm not saying that they need to churn out, just imitations of the last successful game. But for instance, if the next Elder Scrolls game were to come out, and it was basically just the Skyrim engine with a new, 30-hour game or whatever, awesome, great. I don't need those huge jumps in visual fidelity to make me happy. I don't have any problem with Saints Row 4 looking much like Saints Row 3.
Well, it's interesting because there's definitely, like, when you play the game, if you're super familiar with Saints Row 3 like I am, you can see that it would have been so fucking easy for them to have messed this up. But the thing is that because they have a lot of the same activities that you do in Saints Row 4 like you do in Saints Row 3. Like, they'll have there was an activity in Saints Row 3 called insurance fraud, right? Where you'd run out into traffic and you would hit a button to go ragdoll, and the point was to try to kind of like burn out, like aftertouch your character off of as many cars as possible. And it's like they still have that in this game. There's fewer instances of it, but what you end up doing is you can run at a car at super speed, and you can hit the ragdoll button at the last minute, and now it's like you fly 700 feet past that car down the highway, and you're just flying through the air, flipping around, hitting stuff. So it's interesting that the addition of the superpowers to this game really feels like, even though the game is similar to Saints Row 3, it's got a brand new life because the way that you interact with the game is dramatically different. It would be like if you said, well, there's a new Grand Theft Auto coming out. It's exactly the same as Grand Theft Auto 4, but now you're the dude from Prototype, and you could fucking, infect people and wreck shit and that kind of thing.
Go on with the Prototype. I think that has to be mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's very similar to Prototype, especially, mostly, I tell you what, it's mostly similar to Prototype in the way that you get around the world. Because your character can't fly, but you can run really fast, you can jump very high, and you can kind of glide through the air, and that is your primary mode of transportation. And even the gliding kind of animation looks a lot like Prototype, where you got your arms out, and you're just like, whee! But the superpowers here, that's really the big thing to take away, is there's four different active superpowers, and there's 4 passive superpowers that you get. Running and jumping. There's the ground pound. In the active ones, you've got like a fireball, but you can change the element on it to be fire or ice or mind control. There's all these different like interesting powers that you can apply to stuff. And all that is even on top of the addition of crazy shit like the black hole gun or the dubstep gun, which are both completely and totally awesome. I actually played through like 90% of the game with the dubstep gun as my primary weapon, and I don't even know how that happened. It just was a really effective weapon, and I ended up using it like all the different songs on the radio and shit. And what I have stuck in my head audio-wise from this game is the song that the dubstep gun plays when you shoot it inside of Saints Row 4.
So what's some of the bad stuff about it?
Okay, well, some of it I've already said, but there are, and this is, you and I were talking before, Jason, about how this is one of those cases where it's like, you got some really good stuff, you got some pretty bad stuff, not horrific, but like, I hardly ever have lockups in video games, and this game locked up on me like 4 times, just like hard lock in the middle of a mission, and a lot of those times, the checkpoints, it's like they have like these auto saves that happen, but I ended up going back past those and having to go, like if you just cut the system off and you bring it back on again, which you have to do when it locks up, it just dumps you back out on the map. So you have to start whatever that activity is over again. And I've talked before about how the worst thing in the world in a video game is having to redo like a mission you've just done because you didn't even have a chance to forget that shit. Like it's boring. It's dull at that point. The game I played it on PlayStation 3. I've heard the Xbox 360 version has some difficulties. On the consoles, the game is a little ugly. I mean, you play it on the PC.
It's fine. I mean, it's not gorgeous, but it looks fine.
Yeah, I don't know. This is probably the last time that we can get away with this before, 2 months from now, and we're going to have 3 months from now. We have new consoles, and it's like we got to raise the bar a little bit as what an all right looking game is like. Also, like I said, if you're real deep into Saints Row 3, some of the mission stuff that you're going to find here is similar to Saints Row. They've added in a bunch of new missions that take place in a more kind of abstracted, matrixy style environment where you'll have to run down this corridor and dodge stuff, or you have to jump from platform to platform in the cyberspace environment. I found those to be incredibly dull. I just wanted to get through them and get back to the game. But unfortunately, Saints Row 4 does gate some of the upgrades that you can do to your character behind getting a gold medal in some of these missions, and in a way that I don't really necessarily mind that for certain upgrades, dumb shit like, your cars are way faster now or something like that. But you also had things like some of the top tier superpowers, you couldn't actually get them until you got a gold medal in some of these activities, which is, then you end up just doing these activities that aren't super great over and over again.
Because a lot of them were timed.
Right.
And that can be a huge pain in the ass because you miss it by a second. So you got to go all the way back and do it again.
Plus, you'll have things where, Saints Row, the control schema for Saints Row is, like most open world games, it's a little bit loose. And so then you'll have, these racing missions, the Blazon missions or whatever, where you're racing through the map at top speed, and the controls are so sensitive that you're just, you get knocked out of your groove or whatever, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. But for the most part, they cut a lot of the fat. In Saints Row the Third, there was a lot of redoing the same mission type over and over and over again, whereas here, I was so used to Saints Row 3 that I would do these optional missions and then find out later that they were part of this new system of loyalty missions that you do in the game, where...
Like Mass Effect?
Sort of like Mass Effect. It's less like... in Mass Effect, the characters would ask you to do loyalty missions, and they were specific to those characters. And here, you pick up these characters, and each one of them will have a loyalty mission. You have these instances, and that's really where some of the best parts of the game are, where you go into these instances to rescue characters, and there's a parody of another game type, or they've set up this crazy thing that you don't normally do in the map. And that's great. All that stuff is great. And then when you get out of there, you'll do a second mission with that character that will give you the ultimate version of that character. So you can call them in and they'll be superpowered. It's great. But then they'll also have a list of chores essentially for you to do. And those chores boil down to just going to the places on the map that have activities and finishing those activities. To the point where...
You make it sound like, well... I forgot to put the trash out by the curb. If you could do that for me, then you can have the ultimate version of my character.
Like in Saints Row 3, you would buy property, right? This is a very, very extremely exceptionally just dumb minor spoiler. Okay, so Kinsey Kensington is a character you've probably seen her already. She's on the front of the fucking box, for God's sake, and she's a hacker. So in Saints Row the Third, you would get money by buying property in the Saints Row universe. You would buy a store, and that store would add to the amount of money that you got every hour. Here you have credits that you get every hour, but instead of buying these stores, you have to do this little hacking mini game that's kind of...
Oh, hacking mini games. You've never seen that before.
Yeah, this one is a little bit... I don't know. It's all right. It's kind of like Pipe Dream a little bit, but it's less timed. You only have to do it about a dozen times, and it's fairly simplistic. But all over the map, all the stores on the map, you can buy them by doing this little hacking mini game. Well, Kinsey has a mission set that she'll give you where it's do these things and then do these things and then do these things. And at the end of each one of those chains, you get a power-up from her. But all of those things that she's having you do are hacking these stores. So you just go to an area and you hack all the stores in them. You could go to her and pick up this mission, and then all the objectives are already crossed out because you've already fucking done them. So it's just kind of a way to give the Saints Row world, it's giving you a reason to go do this stuff, and it's giving you a tangible reward for doing it instead of just straight up money every hour. So that's an improvement, I think, over Saints Row the Third. The one other thing that I maybe bitched just a little bit about is that in order to upgrade the superpowers that you have to collect these data packets or like orbs that are on the map, and they're all over the place. You have to pick them up one at a time. They're usually on top of houses and shit. And it'll take like 30 of those orbs to do certain of the upgrades in the game. And that becomes a little bit tedious. It was one of those things where I sat down. It's kind of like the flags or whatever in Assassin's Creed or the pigeons.
Right.
And,
yeah, it's just like pointless shit that, yeah.
Except that in order to get these awesome superpowers that you want, make them all upgraded, you need to go do that. And so it becomes a little bit of work. And it honestly kind of feels more like a way to stretch your gameplay time out more than it does something that actually factors into the story real heavily. Fortunately, early on, there's an upgrade that you get where you can see them on your map, so you don't have to go look for them, which is nice. Because at every turn this game is giving you... The game seems to concede early on that it's not super hard, it's not ridiculously difficult, they just want you to have a good time blowing shit up, so here's the shit you need to blow shit up. And yeah, on that, the game succeeds in spades, in my opinion. So... I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else people need to know. I'm still just trying to get over the fact that you didn't get a chance to play this game.
I know.
So yeah, other than that, I mean, it's got a good story. I think it's got a great soundtrack. I think there's a couple of different places in the game where they use the soundtrack to great effect. By putting you specifically with a song to match what you're doing. And at the very end of the game, the last mission, there's a really good song that they use that's on the soundtrack.
No, you told me about that.
Yeah, and it's funny how I'm actually now really excited at what Saints Row 5 will be because...
Yeah, what are they going to do?
No, the thing is that when you get to the end of the game, you can see what they're going to do. Like, you get to the end of the game, and it's almost like when the end credits are rolling, you're just like, oh, shit, oh, my God. No, seriously. Like, I can almost predict at this point what Saints Row 5 is going to be parroting as far as gameplay and stuff goes. But, yeah, it's great vocal cast. All the voice acting is good. It keeps moving at a good pace. There's a few quibbles that I have with some of the way that it looks. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I can't give it a perfect score because it definitely has issues related to, like I said, straight up lockups, the way that it looks on the consoles, especially. And I know this is probably not real fair to the folks over Volition. If anybody are listening to this, I'm sorry, you guys, but like. I've seen what Grand Theft Auto 5 looks like on a console, and like,
yeah,
that shit's pretty. And I don't like to normally I don't normally like to judge a game based on the visuals, but this is showing its age. I probably would have been probably fine if they waited for another 8 or 9 months to make it look better.
4.5 out of 5. That's serious.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent game, and if you're a fan of Saints Row, there is absolutely no reason not to go pick it up. It's fucking fantastic. And I can't wait to play it again. I can't wait for this is one of the few games in the entirety of my reviewing career where I can say I can't wait for the DLC to come out for this game so that I have an excuse to go back and play more Saints Row 4. Like,
oh, Jeffrey, you did Grandma proud.
Take the right running, mate. Damn right. You're beautiful.
Thanks.
I was talking to the robot.